We are live again. This is MoJOE and MoJOE Studio representing 3Gen. 3Gen means 3 generations of leadership, 3 generations in the workplace. And that is represented by John Weirauch out there in Michigan and Rick Olson in Wisconsin. And I'm going to hand this over to Rick so he can introduce our guest for this evening's interview. Rick, how are you?
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Joe. And all of you listeners, it's great to be back with you. I'm very excited about tonight's podcast. A friend for many, many years now, my friend Mike Tucker from Parkersburg, West Virginia. If you've never been to West Virginia, John Denver nailed it. West Virginia, almost heaven. Just one of the prettiest places you'll ever see. And in the midst of that pretty state, we have our friend Mike Tucker, who is the CEO of an award-winning credit union. And we're going to start off with some congratulations, Mike, to you and your team, because Forbes just named you as the #1 credit union in the state of West Virginia, which is absolutely fantastic. So
thank you.
Congratulations to you, Mike.
We'll appreciate that.
Yeah, and it's great having you with us tonight. We're going to have a fun night, just having a great conversation about leadership. But I'm going to pause for a moment, Mike. I'll just let you greet our listeners tonight. We'll start talking about some leadership concepts.
Well, sure. I appreciate you inviting me to participate, and it's great to meet Joe and see John again. And Rick, always good to be with you. So we're really excited to talk a little bit about West Virginia. We'll talk a little bit about our leadership approach that we've taken at our credit union, West Virginia Central Federal Credit Union. We're really proud of some of the things that we have been able to do over the last few years. Really proud of the Forbes Award. We were surprised. We were taken a little bit off guard when that was announced, but we were very excited about that, and certainly am happy to be here.
Well, thank you very much. So, Mike, you and I met at a national conference a number of years ago, and I really didn't know you before then, and you had not run into me, but we connected and we talked, and then that's just begun this long journey. I've made many trips out to Parkersburg to be with you and your team there. Love everything about your leadership approach, what you've developed. Just the passion that you have for people, the passion that you have for growth and development. And I just think it's paid off handsomely. You have a very stable team. People come and they don't leave. They just love it. And they stay and they give their very best. You've had tremendous growth. Tonight, we'd like to explore your leadership journey. And I think maybe we'll just start right there. Let's go way back. And talk to us about the early stages of Mike Tucker. Mike Tucker, long before he was a CEO. What did that leadership journey look like? How did you end up on a leadership path that led you this way?
Well, I think, as I've mentioned to you before, Rick, I was lucky enough to come right out of college and was able to go to work for credit unions, credit union movement. I may be the only person that I know, or maybe you would know also, who was hired because of their wedding picture being in the newspaper.
That's quite a start.
Yes, I was very lucky and have to obviously been very blessed to marry Martha. And I interviewed for a job at the West Virginia Credit Union League. I didn't get that position because I wasn't qualified for it. I'm not sure I was qualified for the position I did eventually get. But a few months later, the CEO at the league at that time saw our wedding picture in the newspaper on a Sunday morning, thought about me, had another position, called us, and got hired. So I went to work for West Virginia Credit Union League back in 1983 as a field consultant, and did that for a couple years. Had an opportunity to move up into the education field. So I was VP of education and training for the league for a few years. Left that location, went to manage a credit union. Then in 1993, I had an opportunity to go to West Virginia Central Federal Credit Union. So having that consulting role, that education role with the league really did me a lot of good, being able to interact with people, learn the credit union movement from the ground up. And so that's kind of how I got into the manager's role at West Virginia Central, president CEO role. Is what it was at that time. And let's see, I'm 28 years in this position.
It's fabulous. Just fabulous. Well, I've been in your community a number of times, Mike, and I've seen you in multiple arenas. I've certainly seen you lead the credit union and do a very good job. I've seen you be a significant voice within the West Virginia League and really helping the entire association of the league. But I've also seen you have a huge impact in your community. You've had so many leadership roles just within the community of Parkersburg as well. I happened to have the privilege of being there on a Sunday. I went to church. I saw you there one more time in a leadership role there. So on so many levels, you're just involved and helping people a great deal and leading in significant ways. I love the story about the picture in the paper. That's no, I haven't heard a story like that from anybody else. But if we could, I'd like to peel back the onion a little bit and go even a little earlier than that. Mike, can you think of things in your childhood? Can you think of things in high school days, college days that got you thinking leadership thoughts that maybe propelled you beyond just, hey, I'm going to get a job, but hey, I think I want to step up and lead. Can you think of anything like that in your background?
Well, I think so. When I was growing up, my mom and dad, I had two brothers, so there's three of us. So obviously, my poor mother with a husband and three boys was not an easy life for anyone. But my father worked very hard, set a great example for us in a leadership role in an accounting area with a local energy company in Clarksburg, and so I think that was really a influence on me. But really, my mother. Probably more so than anyone else. I can remember at a point when the three boys got a little bit old enough that we didn't need her to be there at the end of the school day and everything. She decided to, go to work and take on a part-time job at the church. And she's secretary at the church. And that was always impressed me that she was willing to do that to try to make life a little bit easier for everybody. And she was a leader in a leadership position there with the ladies at the church and things. And one of the things that I saw her do that always made me continue to appreciate her today, but realize, hard work, willingness to do something really pays dividends. But we had a few individuals who attended there who were deaf. And my mother did not know sign language, but she learned sign language to be able to sign the lessons and the songs and everything to these individuals. And she did this for years, and it was always amazing just to sit, basically beside her and watch her be able to do that, where the minister was talking quicker than I am, trying to sign a Bible message to a group of individuals, but just the willingness and desire to do something, to care about people, want to go that extra mile to make sure that somebody could enjoy the worship in a more complete manner. So I think those are a couple things, Rick.
Yeah, those are great. I'm a big fan of your mom. That's a great story. I want to get Joe and John in here. Maybe we'll start with you, John. You got to meet Mike here recently and meet his people and see his credit union. John, I'm going to let you jump in with some things that you'd like to ask Mike tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start with an observation. Walking into your credit union, Mike, and walking into that room full of your entire leadership team, it was excellent. The whole day, your whole team was so laser focused on learning. I don't know if I've ever been part of a group that was just so excited to be there, excited to learn. And they were so focused on everything you said as well. They hung on your every word and really appreciate it and listened to it. And I just think that speaks wonders to your leadership abilities. You're not in a position and you're not forcing them to listen to you. They wanted to. And it was just a really cool experience to see true leadership at work. So kudos to you on that. But my question is this, what attracted you to the credit union industry? I mean, most people are maybe a co-op student or coming out of high school, and then they're a teller, and then they're MSR, and then they work their way up. But you hopped right into the credit union league for the state. What was your motivation there?
Well, John, I'll be completely honest with you. Okay, so as I told you, my wife and I got married about that time period, and she made it very clear to me before we got married that I had to be full-time employed. So I was obviously looking very aggressively for a position. I honestly knew nothing about credit unions, not a thing about credit unions. When I was hired, I interviewed, and apparently with a business degree and an accounting degree, that was enough to get my foot in the door. But I can tell you, I've never regretted it a single day. I was lucky enough to get started into a field that I'm not only passionate about, but I'm really proud to have made a career out of. And I think there's no greater blessing for somebody who's working than to find the right position and be able to get the foot in the door and to really excel at it and have a passion for it.
That is excellent. And let's build on that, because what I've found observing over the years here is just that you don't get the attention and the respect of a team, again, by just having a title. You've worked your way, you have your heart and your passion into it. So I guess maybe just talk to us about, why do you think you have such an amazing team following you, so ready to follow you? What's your leadership secret? What gives you that level of respect?
Well, I don't know if I know for sure the answer to that question, but I believe I have to give Rick a lot of credit, because when we brought Rick in to do some coaching college for us and to spend time with us talking about some of the skill sets that we really needed to have, I'm not sure that I was anywhere near the manager I should have been when we started that process. At that point, I didn't really realize didn't fully appreciate how important each and every staff member is to the success of the organization. And through the process of working with Rick and going through the coaching process, I was able to determine that I always operated with credit union first, members first, and then kind of staff were kind of the third layer of my importance, I guess, which was just kind of reverse of what it needed to be. Eventually, I was able to realize that I can't have happy members producing a quality credit union if I don't have happy staff members. So we turned that dynamic around, and when I started putting the large majority of my concentration on not only making a good credit union, working on a good credit union, but to make sure the staff had everything they needed, show the appreciation that they deserved, and just really making them happy in their roles. And I truly believe that the staff has appreciated that change in me, that change in my management style. And I think I hope that is what has helped.
Well, man, having that courage to change and to push forward and learn is awesome. And that's excellent insight. And I think it tees up Joe for probably some good comments and questions.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike, and for being here with us. I always learn a ton from these conversations, and it's great to meet you. And I look forward to the opportunity to meet you in person one day. Hey, I was thinking, could you name some specific things that you've either implemented or learned along the way that have really made a difference? You talked about this turnaround in your mentality and putting your employees first so that then they will serve your customers first. Can you give some specific either guidelines or programs that you've implemented over the years that you found have been very effective in helping that turnaround in that mentality?
Yeah, I think some of the things that we were able to do and we've tried to concentrate on is that making sure that we did a lot of cross training for our staff, give them as many skills as possible, be sure to ask them what their interest levels are, where do you want to be in a few months, in a few years, what your interest levels are, working hard to make sure that they had opportunities for education. We've really put a lot of concentration into the educational side of our business. We moved one of our key staff members into a VP of leadership and development position. And over the years, that has helped a lot to let the staff know that we're serious, that we mean when we say we want you to succeed. We make a point never to put anybody in a position that we are setting them up to fail. We put a lot of time and discussion and thought process into new positions and who's going to fill that new position. And if we aren't sure that they can be successful, then we'll work with them some more before we put them into that role. Because one of the worst things I think we could do is put somebody in a role that they don't succeed at. quickly lose their confidence, and they may never regain that. So I think in the educational side of it, emerging leader type things, we have a lot of training for staff. We want to make sure that our succession plan is strong going forward, and that we make sure that all of our staff has all the skill sets that they need to be successful.
Excellent. Love that. Thanks for sharing that.
Well, Mike, you and I are both blessed. You talked about how much joy you have just doing the job that you do, that you made a career of it. Probably my favorite card that Lori's given me over the years is the card that says, "I continue to be amazed at your ability to get paid for what you do." It's like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's really cool. I get to do this for a living, make a career of it, and I just love what I do. So we're very blessed people to get to do something like that. I want to go back and visit a time that was kind of early in our relationship, Mike. I met you about the time that our whole economy went south. So I'm going to go all the way back to 2008, 9, 10. Those were really difficult days. What was that like for you? And I just want to set this up. I want to talk about what those days were like and what it was like to lead an organization in just extreme financial hardship times across America. And then I'm going to talk about some things that came out of that later. But just talk about leading when things were really dark in America as far as finances.
And I assume we're talking about 2008, 2009, the mortgage crisis and everything, Rick. Yes, right. That was obviously a challenging time, and it was worse depending on what part of the country you were in. Yeah. So one of the blessings that we did have here in West Virginia is that, part of the issues across the country was that the real estate market started skyrocketing so high that when it collapsed, there was significant issue for lenders holding mortgages, and then also for institutions who invested in mortgage-backed type investments. Well, in West Virginia, our real estate never really appreciated to the level that it did across the country. So our impact was probably about an 8% decrease, where others may have been in certainly double digits and maybe 20, 30, 40% reduction. But it doesn't mean that it didn't affect everybody, because even in West Virginia, the main effect that we had was members' loss of confidence in what was happening in the country. Much of what we do in the economy and how we live our lives depends on what we think tomorrow is going to bring. And once we lose confidence in the market, and then maybe even in the government to be able to control interest rates and things along that lines, it becomes pretty dire. And it did during that time. The biggest thing that we had to deal with probably here in the state of West Virginia was, as a credit union, we have corporate credit unions, and we had a corporate credit union, West Virginia corporate. And what happened with NCUA when they was looking at the corporate credit unions, so they got concerned about the mortgage values and potential losses on the investments. So they came up with all sorts of regulations on how to deal with that. And it basically just pushed our credit union or corporate credit union out of existence. We had to merge it into volunteer corporate down in Tennessee. That was one of the worst things that we had to deal with. And one of the worst things I had to deal with, I think I was chairman of the board for corporate at that time. So anytime that you're in a leadership position for something like that you come to the point and you realize we just can't exist any longer. There's no way that we can operate our organization to meet those regulations. And then you have to look at merger type situations, protecting the staff of the corporate, are they going to have jobs afterwards? So that was the biggest and most significant impact that it had on me personally, and I think also the state of West Virginia during those times. As I said, we were lucky that we did not see such a decrease in market values, but still there was an overall attitude that we had to deal with.
I know when times like that come, there's a very natural inclination to kind of hunker down and to kind of go on defense, to batten down the hatches, like, well, I've got to slash expenses. These are lean days. Right. Let's make sure we can ride this out. And I saw that all across America, not just in credit unions, but in all industries. That sort of thing happened. It wasn't a great time for business, and it certainly wasn't a great time to be a consultant to business during that time. But you all survived well, and you did some things coming out of that that impressed me a great deal. And I just really watched you kind of leave almost a defensive posture and embrace a really offensive posture. And I think it made all the difference. Could you talk a little bit about that and that transition from defense to offense and where that led you?
Sure. One of the things, obviously, all credit unions struggled with then was lending, trying to meet the members, the needs of the members. Our credit union was growing at that time, yet at the same time, we felt we wanted to meet more of the members' lending needs. So for an offensive approach, we decided to work with staff and put some goals in place and to do some rewarding for the success of those goals. And in 2012, well, actually, probably a little bit before that, Rick, because we'd already started coaching college with you. In 2010, 2011, we started introducing staff to world-class service examples. And we took our staff, our entire staff, who could get away for that holiday weekend. We took them to Washington, D.C., to the Ritz-Carlton there. And we actually had some training with the Ritz-Carlton. Many of us, obviously, being from the state of West Virginia, had never stayed in a hotel of that level before. So it was a great experience for our staff, great opportunity for us to see the world-class employees that they had there. So we did that in 2010, just kind of as an introduction into world-class member service. And then in 2012, we took it a little bit of a step further when we wanted to start to see our loan volume grow a little bit. So we set a goal for that year. And I think at that point, we were still growing. And so a net increase of about $8 million in loans sounded pretty good to us. So we set that as our goal. And we said, well, if we reach that goal, we will take the staff, either the team who met the goal or the staff as a whole, if we met the $8 million goal, to Disney. So we set up 3 different teams to kind of a fun competition between each other. And we had an opportunity to set up 3 individuals who probably would not have had an opportunity to be in a leadership position to lead those 3 teams. So we took 3 of our member service individuals, 3 young ladies who, I think one was teleline, one call center, one in member service. And they all took a lead of a team. They named the teams, they had a budget, and they worked hard to come up with promotional ideas to promote loans to our membership. And our mega goal, as we called it, was $8 million. Well, we exceeded that, and we had about a 19% growth in our loans that year. So we grew around $11 million that year, which was significant growth for us at that point. But at the end, we were able to take every staff member who could get away. We flew to Orlando, went to Disney for 3 days, and made a fun trip of it.
It was an amazing year. And I want to give you the Paul Harvey part of it from my perspective. I happened to be there the night that you were giving out some awards from the year before. You'd had a contest the year before too. The prizes weren't that robust, but they were still nice prizes. It was like a iPod or something like that, something that you gave the staff.
I think it was an iPad.
Okay, iPad, yep. And so the winning people got their iPad. And I'll never forget it. We're handing out the iPads. You have a dynamic gal named Amber there, and just effervescent. And we're handing out these iPads. And she goes, "Rick Olson, you are here tonight. Does that mean you're here to tell us that next year we're going to do another contest and next year we're going to Disney?" And I go, "No, I'm not going to tell you that. But that is very interesting." And just this fun laughter and this joyous spirit went through the group. We got done with our night. Everybody walked out of the room. And I just want to brag to John and Joe about this is who Mike Tucker is. Everybody leaves the room. It's Mike. It's Cindy, his vice president. It was Lisa, who was our marketing director at the time. And he just turned to Lisa, who she also doubled as a travel agent. He said, Lisa, why don't you run the numbers and see what it would cost us to go to Disney? And so with that, Lisa set sail and got some numbers and really got some amazing numbers. I was so impressed with what you were able to do to get your people down to Disney. 2 days at Disney, a flight, hotels, and next thing I know, you're committed and you're going off to Disney. So that's the Paul Harvey part of the story.
And I think the rest of that story, Rick, is that for the next 9 months, I was scared to death. I was scared to death that we wouldn't make it. I was scared to death that we would make it because we afford to do it. So I spent 9 months a little bit concerned, but it worked out extremely well.
It did. I know your board quite well. I've had wonderful talks with your board over the years. And after that happened, I just congratulated, the credit union and said to the board, it's a fantastic thing that you all have done. How do you feel about sending your staff to Disney? They said, it's great. We've never made so much money. It's fabulous. We're happy to see them go and enjoy. But Mike, I do want you to know that what you did during that year, that inspired lots of people around the country. I kind of helped open a door to get you into a conference so you could tell the story at a conference. But I just watched other CEOs lean forward. It's like, what a great idea. Let's just really grow and let's have a lot of fun and let's have an incredible celebration when it's all over. So kudos for being a bold leader. And if you were concerned, it didn't show.
That's good.
I have to add two things here. First of all, I feel like the majority of leaders in this country, the majority of business leaders, if someone on their team said, you should send us all to Disney World, they wouldn't have a second thought. You'd be like, yeah, okay, crazy person. No, you actually took it, got a budget for it, figured it out and said, all right, let's do it. I mean, that's not normal from my experience with the leaders, just to take some random, seemingly kind of out of nowhere idea and be like, all right, well, let's see what we can do. Second thing I have to ask you, in a time where, when economy is bad or when business is definitely projected to be in a downturn, like Rick said, it's time to go on defense. It's time to cut the budget. It's time to be conservative. What training did you receive, or who did you talk to, or is it just you? Like, how did you decide to switch that around, go in the office and make something out of it?
Well, we've always had a real strong desire to be successful at the credit union. We have a tremendous desire to make our members successful. And at that point, you're looking at an economy that was struggling, and we just started kicking around some ideas on what can we do that would just stimulate some things. And that's what we came up with. We thought, we know members need loans. They need to be purchasing vehicles. They need to be sending their children to college. They need to be purchasing homes, but they were a little bit fearful to do so. So we wanted to make an environment that they not only felt comfortable coming in and talking to us, we wanted to give them also a strong, sound financial environment that they'd benefit from. So we priced the loans as best we possibly could. We marketed them as well as we could. We tried to make as much fun out of it as possible. We actually had a time period where we had these cutouts made of myself and Cindy and Mark, our actual bodies and heads and everything, and stand-ups, I guess they would be called. And the teams, this was not my favorite part, they would dress those stand-ups in various outfits and things. And I don't like to talk about or even think about how they dressed some of those characters up. But, we just made really a fun environment out of it as much as we possibly could. And I think that made a huge difference for us. So we were just, and we also, it's kind of the old adage, you've got to spend money to make money type of thing. We realized that we need to put our money on the line a little bit. We had to put the effort in to make sure we would succeed. And that's what we decided to do. It was a leap of faith for us, but it worked. We repeated it for a couple more years. We actually had another trip to Dollywood down in Tennessee. And then we also took a group on a bus trip to New York City and spent 3 days in Manhattan. So now the only problem we have today is that the staff who were not on board at that time continues to say, well, when are we going to do that? So now we got to figure out an opportunity possibly to do something like that.
Well, what I think is just so cool about that is, again, in those type of situations where I feel like a lot of people's natural instinct is to pull back and hunker down. That might have been maybe easier for you as a CEO and leader to cut things on the budget. And instead, you didn't do something easy for yourself, but you did something that benefited your staff, your community, and the members that needed you. And then ultimately, of course, in a credit union world, all members are shareholders. I mean, you really you very selflessly took a difficult task upon yourself, you and your leadership team, and just improved everything in a time where it could have gone opposite. That's just really cool.
Well, I think that's a good point, John, from the standpoint that, as you said, the credit union is made up of the members. The members are the shareholders. The credit union is the members, and, if we aren't willing to do everything we possibly can to make sure that they're benefiting, then we're not doing our job well. And that's kind of where we were.
And John, just to piggyback up, such a great question. During that time, Mike and I, we were talking about Zappos. We were talking about Tony Hsieh. He was the CEO of Zappos. And he made a statement that Mike and I shared together. And it was just such a powerful statement, but it was very simple. He just said, you can't cut your way to profitability. Okay. It's just a fascinating take. You can't in other words, you just can't play defense and then expect to have some big windfall come your way. Right. At some point, you got to launch. You got to go on offense. You got to invest. You cut away from the shore, and Mike did that extremely well. So, Joe, do you want to jump in on this one?
Yeah, absolutely. Mike, I'm thinking, for people in my position who have been working for quite a while in the work world, they're not towards retirement yet. They're making decisions about, should I continue with my organization with the opportunities to advance myself personally, professionally, and within the organization, or should I entertain offers from other companies that might, propel my career quicker or help me, get into a better position? And I'm assuming that as a high-performing leader yourself, you've had many opportunities along the way to change industries, to change companies, and you've made the decision to stay with the credit union industry, and obviously that's worked out well for you. So what would you say to middle management who are trying to figure out, should I stay, should I go, and why? What is your perspective on that?
I think that's a great question, Joe. I think what I would say to a middle management type person is that if this organization that you're working for, and I like the word passion, if you do not have a passion for what you're doing, then you probably should be looking elsewhere. There's really no reason to be putting all your eggs in the basket of an organization that you just don't love. And if you don't love that organization, then find one that you do. Life is way too short to struggle through and not to be completely fulfilled and completely happy in what you're doing. But if you're lucky enough, such as I was, to get into a career path that, yes, I could have probably moved into the for-profit world and maybe made more money at some point or had other opportunities at some point. But, it never really crossed my mind so much because I love what I'm doing. I love the credit union movement. I love the fact that we can work each and every day serving those members, and we can work each and every day with the concept in our mind is, what can we do to make our members' lives better, as opposed to what can I do to make money for the stockholders, or what can I do to make us more profitable? You have to be profitable. You have to have your capital. You have to be financially strong. But the whole point of what we've always tried to do and what I've always hoped to do is to make sure we put those members first, and each and every day we do everything we possibly can to make their lives better.
Excellent. Thank you.
I want to talk a little bit about community. I mentioned it earlier, but Mike, I've watched you and your team over the years have such an impact in Parkersburg, West Virginia. Habitat for Humanity, fundraisers, charitable gifts to many. Talk to us a little bit about your philosophy, your approach on that, maybe some of the things that you and West Virginia Central have been involved in.
Yeah, a few years ago, Rick, as you know, we were a state chartered credit union. We moved to federally chartered, and our federal membership now is geographical, 6 counties. So at that point, we realized that once we were able to concentrate more on really, even though it was 6 county, more of a smaller footprint for us, to where we could actually concentrate and look at the communities and see what was needed, that we would do exactly that. We like many, we have core values, and one of our core values is obviously passion. I've said that enough times, but community. And one of the key things we concentrate on is the community. The board's been wonderful over the years. At the end of probably the last 4 or 5 years, we've always had a good profitable, good earnings year, and we've set aside money each year for the following year's charitable giving, and we've set aside about $150,000 at the end of each calendar year to give away the following calendar year. And we do it. Some years we've done it by trying to give and to touch and to make donations to as many groups as possible. At times we've tried to do larger dollar amounts. Habitat for Humanity, you mentioned, Rick. We've actually just in the process now of sponsoring our 6th Habitat house. We were just working on that spent 3 days end of last week working on that. So we not only do a financial donation to the Habitat organization, but then we have a number of staff members who go and physically work on putting the walls up, putting drywall up, putting siding, fascia, soffit, that type of thing, roofing it. We've actually roofed houses before. So staff just loves doing that. And just, I think that effort helps us solidify our love for the community, right, and our desire to have a positive impact each and every day. So we realize that, and I believe all our staff believes this too, one of the best things we have done is to concentrate on the community, to realize that we want to be an active part. We want the community to feel as though when there's a need, financial or otherwise, they think of West Virginia Central as an organization they can call. And if we can, we'll step up and help them.
Yeah, it's great. Are you still doing Stuff the Bus?
We are. Yes.
Okay, tell our listeners a little bit about that.
This is probably the 12th year, give or take a little bit. I've kind of lost track on the number of years, but it started off in the program. So when school season would start, we realized at that point, and it's still true today, that quite often not every student had the supplies that they needed for the school year. And we had always heard, and we checked on it and verified, is that quite often teachers would find it necessary to pay out of their own pockets to buy the supplies for students who may not have everything that they need. So we started a program called Stuff the Bus, and it was just that. We would gather school supplies, and we actually had a school bus placed on our parking lot, and we actually stuffed that bus full of school supplies. And we did that for a number of years, collecting supplies, and until the COVID situation came up. And we said, well, we don't want to stop doing this. School is still going to occur. There's still going to be that need. But we were afraid that we wouldn't be able to collect supplies with the shortages and everything. So then we've moved to a monetary donation to each teacher. We asked the teachers to register, let us know that they would like to participate in the program. And this past year, for example, Rick, I think we wrote $30 checks, not a large amount, but a good amount to 650 teachers. So, and then they can use that money as they see fit for their students.
It's great. I've been at the credit union while Stuff the Bus is going on, and it just crazy tall stacks of stuff, really nice stuff, and backpacks. And boy, you guys do it big, you do it right, and I know you make a real impact on the community.
That's a super cool program, and I want to touch on, what you said a little bit. We talked a little bit about how credit unions are member owned, right? And so, and they're not-for-profit organizations, right? So the, any sort of proceeds you get normally would go back to members. And the credit union I'm involved with, Frankenmuth Credit Union, as well as yourself, sounds like you take the opportunity to also give back to the community. And I just think that's a really cool thing that the credit unions, not every credit union does that. Sometimes they find ways to maybe lower a rate on a CD or even give cash back to members, which equals maybe like, $20 here or there. But instead you could actually make the community a better place. So am I kind of speaking what you're doing? Is that where those type of funds come from?
Oh, yes, absolutely. You're exactly right, John. And when we started looking at it, we had that same conversation, and probably almost verbatim for what you were just saying, that we can continue to worry about dividend rates or give a little bit back here, or maybe a bonus dividend or whatever the case may be. But then we kind of decided, well, we're going to do all those things. That's automatic. Well, let's take an additional step and let's look at these different groups in the community that will not only benefit our members, but also benefit the community as a whole. And just to be able to make a real sound financial, physical impact in the community. And I think I said this a few moments ago, but probably one of the best things we did was to become as involved as we have in the community, because we're kind of top of mind quite often when something occurs or there's a need, or even if somebody's just thinking, I need a car loan. Well, if they're thinking credit union, hopefully they're thinking West Virginia Central, and we're doing our very best to reward them for that.
Such a great plug-in. That's anyone listening from the counties in which you serve should know that you don't need to get involved with the big banks, because who knows where those profits are going. You get involved with that hometown credit union, they're going to help build your community. What a cool thing.
It is great to watch the community resources stay local, right back to bless the community. Mike, one of the things we like to do on this program is John represents the younger worker, Joe kind of the mid-cycle worker, and Rick kind of the tail end here. And we like to ask our leadership friends any specific advice that you would like to give to the young employee, or to the one who is in the middle of the career, or the one who is maybe nearing the finish line but not there yet. So can we talk about that a little bit? Sure. Maybe we'll start with John's group, the young ones here. Special wisdom or advice that you would give to the young ones.
It's funny you asked that. I was on vacation here a couple of weeks ago, and we were standing in a store, and the young man who was working there came up to me and he asked me how old I was. And I told him, well, I'm 60. And he said, well, what advice would you have for me?
How about that?
Yeah, so basically the same question. So I gave him some. I spoke to him, and I'll share what I'm going to share here in just a second. At the end, I said, now, did you come up because you thought I looked old or because I looked wise? And, luckily, he said wise. I didn't think he was thinking old. So that was good. But what I told him, and Joe, I'm sorry, this is where sometimes my thoughts get a little redundant. But for a young person, this is what I told him: is find what your passion is in life,
Yeah.
And I told him, if your passion is this store, then perfect. Strive hard to do as well as you possibly can, or find your passion. And once you find that passion, some of the advice I gave him was to work incredibly hard, to excel at everything you possibly can excel at, to ask as many questions as you possibly can, to let them know what your interests are, to let them know that you want to move up, and do everything you possibly can as a young employee to set yourself apart. Because if you don't, then you may be overlooked. And that's one of the things you don't want to do as a young person entering into a field. But find that role that is right for you, and then do everything you can to excel at it.
You've done a great job through the night of coming back to the theme of passion, and now it's the young employee, find your passion. We've looked at John Miller's book QBQ, and he's got that great line in there. It just says, believe or leave. And it's all about passion. This works for you. And if it is, you're all in. If it doesn't, go and find that place, that will do that.
Right.
But don't hang in there and not be all in. So believe or leave, passion, a wonderful theme. John, you want to follow up on that?
Yeah. So excellent response there. Obviously, passion is so important to you and to me as well. So let's say that passion leads some of this younger generation, right? And I'm a millennial. We have Gen Z coming up into the workforce now too, right? So we're us young kids are starting to really take things over, right? And we're finding ourselves in this big transition. We've got baby boomers, very few traditionalists left, and we got baby boomers retiring like crazy. Millennials are the biggest chunk of the workforce. Sorry, Joe, we don't talk about Gen X very much, but they're the forgotten generation, but I'm just kidding. But anyways, we're finding ourselves in these either wanting to be in leadership positions or almost like out of necessity getting put into leadership positions. So what advice would you have for you were a young man looking to get into leadership roles right from the get-go. So what advice do you have for those new leaders when they're younger? They might have older people that report to them and things like that.
One of the things we kind of experienced here recently is that with some of our millennials, quite often they have a plan, and I think it's great to have a plan. They have kind of in their mind, where do I want to be at certain times in my life? What I would encourage maybe individuals in that age group is not to compress that time period quite so much. Quite often, we've had at least a couple employees who would think, I need to be here in the first year, and then I need to be here, and then I need to be here. And if they don't make those steps, then they're leaving a career path that I thought the couple of these individuals were really, really good at, but they wanted to be here, and it wasn't possible yet. So I think you have to be willing to take an aggressive approach by letting people know where you want to be, but you have to have some patience in it too. You have to work your way into it. Don't be quick to walk away and go to another career path, which is very possible. And it's easy to do today, Joe. I think you were talking about it earlier, is that there's so many opportunities through Indeed or whatever the case may be. You throw your resume out there, and before you know it, you're getting offers maybe all across the country. And maybe that's good for that person, but it's not always the case. So I think in some cases, a little bit of patience, a little bit, if you know this is where I want to be, give it a little bit of time. And so that's what I've seen here recently. And I think that's worth mentioning.
Awesome advice. Thank you.
One of the mentors that I had early in my career said the exact same thing. He said, Joe, you can, if you're talented at all, you'll have plenty of offers, more than you can ever say yes to. But if you continue to jump from one place to the next without experiencing the benefits of longevity, he says, you don't know what those benefits are until you've actually experienced it. You got to stick with something long enough to understand how being in one place long enough where you can be an influencer, you can create change, or you can be part of a team that accomplishes something that just takes time. There's a benefit to that as well, that you have to weigh against other opportunities that may present themselves.
Right.
I love this entire circle of what your message is, Mike. It's find your passion, follow your passion. So yeah, if you're at a place you don't want to be at, don't be so concerned about longevity that you're going to stay here and you hate it.
Right.
But then adversely, so if you are passionate about something and those leadership opportunities aren't quite there yet, don't get so frustrated that you feel like you need to go somewhere else to find it. It's all the things that everyone has to tug of war with when they're deciding what their next steps are.
Right. That young man that I was talking about in the store, we even talked about relationships and things, personal relationships, and we were talking about how important it is to take your time and make a sound decision. Because one of the biggest decisions you're going to make is who I'm going to spend my life with, and life is too short and too valuable, too precious to make a bad decision, so patience, making sound decisions, very, very important.
Very cool.
I've found that for some people in the middle of their career, they're wrestling with, can I be a change agent where I am? Do I have some influence now based on my experience, my education, my expertise, where I can make the place that I'm working a better place? Or is that not even possible? And so for me to have any influence, to make places better, I have to go to another organization. I need to go to another, industry, another career. What advice? Actually, this is a different kind of question. What kind of leadership do you provide to empower people who have the experience to be agents of change, even within their own department and then within your organization?
Right. Well, that's something we learned years ago working with Rick. We tell our staff, each and every one of them, no matter what their position is that you are I forget exactly the right term, Rick, but you're the ruler of your kingdom. That's not the right terminology.
Yeah, you're the CEO of this teller window.
CEO of your teller window.
You're the CEO
or
of this MSR desk. Yes,
exactly. So we tell each and every person that you're empowered to make decisions. You're empowered to work with that member and make sure that you make that member problem go away. That you make that member happy that we're here, that they're a member of our credit union. And so we try to empower every single staff person to do that. And we tell them how important it is for them to be the CEO of their own area. We also encourage individuals, I think, at that level that you were alluding to a few moments ago, Joe, is that we want you to take risk. The jobs aren't meant to be mundane from day to day, from moment to moment. We want you to see a need, take a risk if necessary. We then, as upper management, have to realize that, hey, we gave you that ability. Don't be too harsh on the person if it doesn't work out. But we encourage risk. And somebody in the middle of their career, I think risk taking is something that a person should be doing. They spent some time at the organization, and now it's a time to, if you haven't done it already, now it's a time to take some risk, to step out there a little bit farther, show your value so that you have the opportunity to move into more leadership roles potentially, or to basically just get to whatever level that you have in your mind is perfect for you. So risk taking and empowering staff to do their jobs well.
Excellent.
So Mike talks about this, but Mike lives this very, very well. And I want to go back to 2012, the whole Disney experience. That was a major initiative. There was a lot at stake, but it was led by frontline staff. It was not led by people on the leadership team or executives or even managers. It was led by frontline staff. Mike himself was on a team, and his team was led by a 20-something-year-old staff person. And it was fun to watch the leadership team get divvied up into different teams. And you got the CEO going this direction, you got a VP going over here, another VP's going over here, all by being led by 20-somethings who are frontline people who are kind of calling the shots and running the game plan for how we're going to do this and how our team is going to get to Disney. Right. So while he's talking about this and believing in your people and encouraging risk-taking, he's lived it out extremely well. It's paid off very handsomely. So to all of our leadership friends out there, I just encourage you, don't just espouse the idea of empowerment, but really, really live it out. It'll pay off handsomely for you.
And Rick, as you were sharing that, I was thinking there really was benefits from two sides there. So not only did our younger individuals, younger staff members had that opportunity to take leadership roles, but it forced those of us who typically would have been in leadership roles to step back, to basically be quiet, to let others kind of set the pace and things. And I think that was a great lesson for each and every one of us, because we weren't used to that. I mean, we were basically put in a position being paid to take a leadership role and to set the strategic path. And we did this in kind of a way, but now we're at a point that we had to take a back seat. And I think we learned a lot from taking that back seat.
I think John, Joe, and I would agree that would be a very healthy thing for all leaders to do from time to time. Just get off the platform, go sit in the crowd, and just be a spectator here and just kind of feel that whole thing of, wow, major decisions are being made and I'm not the one doing it. I would agree. Great life lessons on both sides for the young leader, but a very fresh lesson for our entire leadership team as we follow. Yeah.
So we're touching on the question that I want to make sure we don't forget to ask. I'll ask it on behalf of Rick. You know, we've asked from the millennials perspective. We got the Gen X, and now we've got, we could put it delicately, those that are in the sunset of their career. What advice do you have, Mike, succession planning wise? You know, it's time for someone to carry that torch, and not just for the next person, but for years and years to come. You've built such an amazing organization. How do you ensure that continues on after you're ready to retire?
Right. Well, that's something we've been talking about for a while, because we, like every credit union, we have a lot of our leadership it's beginning to come up on retirement age, you know, in the next 5 to 8 or 10 years. And so we've really been concentrating on that, going back to empowering staff and making sure that we're sharing our knowledge. We have been working with the Emerging Leader Program that Rick does. That's been fantastic for us. We've ran, I think now, I would say 15 employees through that Emerging Leader Program. We're going to have another class here probably next year and run another 4 or 5 through it. Not all those people are still with us, and that's okay, because they gained valuable insight and valuable abilities that's allowed them to move on to something that maybe they had more of a passion for, and that was fine. But you know, that type of thing has helped us quite a bit. Where we're at right now is it's time to share our knowledge. You know, it's time. I've been lucky to have mentors in my life since 1983 when I started in credit unions. So without those individuals, and I've got a whole list of ones that I just attribute so much to, but as we get closer to our retirement at this point, we have got to be have more of a mindset of being a mentor to those around us and sharing that knowledge and making sure that we give them our time and making sure that we give them all the direction and skills that they're possibly going to need. Because and I tell staff this, because I've been, you know, I plan, I'm 60, and at 65 I plan to retire. That could change, but that's my goal today. And I tell them, you know, you all going to be the leaders. You're the ones who need to be ready to take over this role. And so we're spending a lot of time making sure that we are getting ready for that. We're identifying leaders in our succession planning, and we're doing all the training necessary. It's this way too important. We've developed what I think is a great credit union, and I want to make sure that once I do leave, that credit union is not only going to be great, it's going to be even greater at that time.
Awesome.
I love the little phrase that goes like this: you can't plan the future, but you can plan your people.
Right.
And the future's always got surprises. Just a few days ago, we look back on 9/11, just 20 years ago now. Total game changer. Whatever your plans were before 9/11, your plans just got flushed away on 9/11 because our whole world changed. The economy changed, trust changed, security changed, everything changed. And so there's always limitations when we plan the future because of the unknowns. But there are no limitations for the organization that will plan their people. And that's been a passion of Mike and West Virginia Central all along, is planning their people, investing in them, believing in them. Like the Ritz-Carlton would say, our people are our number one corporate asset. And just kind of living that out. It's paying off handsomely. And whatever surprises the future may bring, I believe that Mike has positioned his people well to handle that, again, because he has planned his people well moving forward. Well, gentlemen, we are moving toward the time where we need to wrap it up. Joe, John, any last questions or comments that you want to make before we wrap up here tonight?
Go for it, Joe.
Well, Mike, you mentioned just briefly core values. Would you recap just real quickly what are the most important core values that you've found over the years that really make the big difference in the everyday operation?
Well, we've identified 5, Joe, core values. I'd like to just share. We have teamwork, innovation, community, passion, and excellence. That's our core values. And then obviously we have statements beyond that on how we would do that. But in our case, passion, obviously, we really strongly coach that with our staff and with our people. And community, although everything we do, we want to do it in an excellent manner. We're not satisfied with we try not, we're not always successful, but we strive to do everything that we do. We try to do it at the very best level possible. And if we can't, then maybe we shouldn't be doing it. Maybe we should find something else to be working on. But excellence and always putting our members first. That's just the passion in our jobs and the teamwork. We've talked about that. That's incredibly important. We had a department heads meeting today and had an opportunity we have some new people in those roles, and we gave them opportunities to share what's working well, what they'd like to see changing, what they need, those type of things. And it's a teamwork aspect. I mean, one of the main goals of our meeting today was to walk away after hearing each of the department heads share their thoughts on their department and be able to now work as a team to make each one successful in those efforts. So, teamwork.
Excellent.
Good.
And the thoughts I have to close, no more questions. Just thank you so much, Mike, for your time. It was a pleasure meeting you. And I went out to your credit union to see you in person. I appreciate all of that and all of your insight. It's just really nice. I enjoy these interviews so much, hearing awesome insights from awesome leaders. So thank you.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
Mike, any parting last words you want to say before we wrap up tonight? You did a fabulous job on our podcast. We appreciate it. But anything you'd like to say before we wrap up tonight?
The only other thing, I appreciate being asked to do this. I've enjoyed it. I was not looking forward to it.
You heard about the guys.
Yeah. I just know me. So I was a little bit nervous doing it, but you made it very easy. So I did enjoy that very much. I do want to encourage anyone who might be listening is that, when I started into my position, I knew nothing about what I was getting into. I am not the smartest person in the world by any stretch of any imagination, but I have a lot of good people around me. So I've always been able to find good people, let them run and show their abilities to excel. And every time they excel, it makes me look good, basically. Yeah. As an organization, we excel, and we just benefit from that entire process. So good people around you, find good people, and give them the permission to be wonderful.
Excellent. Well, your humility is something very special. But I'm going to refute some of what you said. You're very smart. You're very smart. You have so many fans and admirers across the nation. I know a lot of them who are just really big Mike Tucker fans. The three of us are big Mike Tucker fans. But I love your approach. I compare you to the symphony conductor who's just really good at bringing it all together. And you've done that very, very well. So you've blessed us tonight. You've helped us. You've helped our leaders who are listening across the country. And thank you. We're very grateful. And it's just a joy to have you as a friend, Mike. So
thank you.
God bless you in every way.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks all.
Good night.
Night.
Have a good night. Bye-bye.